email? What does it mean?
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or
The
news.
single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Conversation is the oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas.
Forbes Books Radio presents The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett.
Joining me today is Ed Moss. He's been the president of VOXX Automotive for nearly a decade. He has over 20 years of experience in operations and manufacturing for domestic and international commercial electronics companies. Ed spearheads new product launches on a multi-facility international basis. He has extensive experience in production, materials and systems, and inventory management. While with VOXX, Ed has helped support a 50% growth for the leading automotive audio manufacturer. Ed, I'm so glad you joined me today on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Clint. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Let's start with your background. Tell us a little bit about your career path.
Sure. Coming out of high school, I went to college for a year. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to waste my dad's money, to be honest. And he was like, either go now or you're on your own. And I said, well, I'm going to go on my own. And I started working, got a job as a machinist, was in the United Steelworkers Union. And I did go to night school. I did continue to go to school, but I wanted to work full time. And so for probably the first 10 years of my career, I spent working with my hands, actually. Like I said, I learned how to run a horizontal milling machine. I learned how to weld. I learned how to fabricate things out of metal, did sheet metal work. Then I got into electronics and, started to major in electrical engineering, but I had an opportunity as a supervisor when I was only 21, and I enjoyed it, and apparently I did well. And the owner of the company I worked for gave me some advice on, do I want to be an engineer or do I want to make a lot of money? And I said, well, I think I prefer to make money. And he said, well, then you may want to consider management because you're pretty good at it. So I switched my major to management. And got a job working for Panasonic in 1990, and it was amazing, the advancement, the technology, the automation they had, and I really enjoyed it. So I took advantage of their educational assistance program, went to night school, got my degree in management, and just worked my way up from a supervisor to director of manufacturing within Panasonic. And then a smaller company I was working for, Envision, got bought out by VOXX. I was VP of manufacturing, and since then worked my way up to executive VP and then president, like you had mentioned, of VOXX Automotive.
That's quite the career path, man. That's awesome. Working with your hands and your head.
Yeah, I tend to think of myself as kind of a blue collar guy in a white collar job. So I can relate to the people on the floor because I did a lot of the same type of work that goes on in some of our factories. And being a supervisor at Panasonic, learning how to make high quality automotive grade electronics has really helped me train and educate my suppliers overseas to meet an automotive standard. So I really have nothing bad to say about Panasonic. 16 years was a great learning experience. And to this day, I still value what I learned from them. They shared with me everything they learned, a lot from Edward Deming back in the day. And I took what they taught me and I'm sharing it with my partners overseas as well.
That's awesome. And tell us a little bit about VOXX Automotive. As I was doing research, you guys have a lot of really famous brands involved.
We do. And basically, there's two elements within VOXX Automotive. There's the aftermarket, which operates under the VOXX Electronics company description. And then there's the VOXX OEM. The company itself really started out within the VOXX Electronics group. The founder started selling radios back in the 60s to dealers when cars came off the line without a radio in it. And that evolved into just an assortment of other accessories over the years, from radios to cruise control to intermittent wipers to navigation systems to cameras, remote starts. And to this day, my gosh, almost 60 years later, we're still doing the same thing. We're constantly looking for accessories that are not a standard feature or option from the OEMs. And we sell them through a network of expediters and distributors and retailers across the country. So that's the aftermarket side of the business. As a result of doing well in some of those categories, we migrated over into a certified accessory division within our OEMs. Ford, GM, Subaru, Nissan. We provide OEM level products now as a certified OEM provider. Products such as remote start, security systems, and that evolved into some true OEM business, such as most recently our Amazon Fire TV rear seat entertainment solution that we brought into Stellantis on the Wagoneer, Cherokee, and Pacifica, and as well within Ford, it's currently on the Navigator and the Expedition. So we kind of cover everything from the aftermarket to true OEM. We recently bought VSM, which is in the heavy duty truck category. And we're also now manufacturing and providing lighting and turn signals into the heavy duty truck category. Peterbilt, Kenworth, Daimler, Volvo, Mack are all customers on top of the traditional OEMs.
Wow. Pretty deep.
It is. It's a lot of brands, like you said. We're in a lot of different categories. We're a smaller company that does a lot of the work that the larger guys just really, there's no real benefit for them to take on the crumbs. So we take on a lot of the small stuff. And, there's a market for that. We're quick, we're fast to market. And, that's worked well for VOXX over the years.
That's awesome. Now, you've held your president position for, like we said, quite a while, almost a decade. How do you continue to challenge the status quo as your leader who's held this position for so long?
Well, as I mentioned, we are in a situation where we really have to innovate or we're going to die, right? We have to innovate. We have to evolve. Our customers aren't telling us what they want because a lot of times they don't know what they want. So it's up to us to, and maybe myself, to create a culture that's based on innovation, employee empowerment, ownership. We want our employees to come to the table with suggestions. We have some really cool stuff that originated from our own employees internally that we, wrap some patents around, and we're launching some products that were created within. And I think that's one of the benefits of being in both the aftermarket and the OEM business. Sometimes the OEMs kind of tie you up quite a bit, and they can take away some of your resources that are needed to be innovative and to be in that advanced engineering category. But with the aftermarket constantly having to look for new products, the OEM side of the group can see what's working over there, and then we can take it and bring it into the OEM group. But at the same time, we're learning that sometimes the OEMs could be bringing something to market that the aftermarket doesn't have yet. And we see growth in categories such as LED lighting. We see some growth in EVs with EVSS systems or electrical vehicle sound systems. So the team has to continuously sink or swim on their own. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess. If you like ownership, if you like to be an entrepreneur, if you like to work on new advanced technology and be innovative, then this is a great place for you. And that culture is really what started at the top with our founder, John Shalom, over 60 years ago, my boss, Pat Lavelle, and the team around me all, understand the expectation. They understand it's up to us to continue to satisfy our customer, bring new products to our customer. And I think that's what keeps us going.
Yeah, I think that there's you mentioned the founder. I noticed that VOXX was an interesting name. And then, of course, it came from Audio VOXX. So your history goes way, way back.
Exactly.
So what aspects of your leadership approach have remained constant? And how do you think your leadership style has evolved throughout your career?
Sure. I think, early on, as a supervisor, you're learning, right? And, sometimes you got to learn from mistakes. I think one of the things I learned early on is when an employee complains about another employee, for example, you better get the other employee's side of the story before you run with it.
Yeah.
Because there's always two sides, and then there's the truth somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
And, being open-minded, being a good listener, utilizing active listening skills, things of that, I think are important. I think over the years, I've tried to find a balance, I think, that works for me, in which you need to show an equally strong concern for both the employees that work for you and in the company and your partners and the company. I think if you're too heavy-handed and you're just focused on the company, you're going to have you're going to get results, but people aren't going to be really happy. If you only focus on the employee, you might have happy employees, but maybe you're not achieving company goals. So I shoot for an equilibrium to try to find that middle ground between showing a strong concern for both. Sometimes I have to ask my employees to make sacrifices for the company, but they know in return, after working for me, that when they need a favor or they have a personal issue, that it's going to be no problem. Go ahead, take care of your family. You need a couple of days off. You worked through the weekend, you jumped on a plane, you went to Asia, you went to a supplier. I mean, this is a 24/7 business. So it's a give and take. And so try to be fair, firm but fair. Got to make sure we're working towards achieving the goals. I need to make winners out of the people around me and under me. And if they're successful, I'm successful. If they're not, I got to either, help them in, with their areas that need some help. But at the same time, I can't be afraid to make some tough decisions sometimes that nobody likes to make when it comes to your team. So I think I have a great team right now. It took a while to get here, but I couldn't ask for a better group of folks, under me, around me, and they all have a very positive attitude, and they work around the clock, and they do whatever it takes. They understand, failure is not really an option, and they do everything they can to be successful. And I'm here to support them. Doesn't matter where I am, 24/7. They know I'm available. Text me, shoot me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So I'm there for them. They're there for me. And together we're working on achieving company goals and at the same time, personal goals. Employees want to advance. They want to maybe try something different. They need to know that they have an opportunity to do that within the organization.
Yeah, I'm going to talk some more about the team a few questions later as well, because I heard a comment you made at CES that I wanted to ask about. So,
sure.
What traits or characteristics are essential for any effective leader to have?
I think, integrity is always a no-brainer. You have to, people are going to watch you, and they listen to everything you say and do. And do you do what you say what you do? I think that's important. I think you have to be an effective communicator. Can't be afraid to get up and speak in front of people. It's a big fear people have, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. I think defining goals and objectives, making sure people understand the expectations, that we hold ourselves accountable, reflect on our performance. I'm big on continuous improvement, lessons learned. And then, of course, you've got to have some recognition in there. Employees need to be recognized for their hard work and their achievements along the way to show that you value them. So I think everybody, there's some common characteristics that good leaders have, but then you as a person have to decide which ones that based on your team and the business make the most sense for you to adopt and bring out the best in your team.
And one of your specialties I saw on LinkedIn is strategic and tactical leadership. How do you think strategic and tactical leadership intersect?
Sure. Again, it comes down to clearly defined goals and objectives. So we have short-term goals, midterm, long-term. We have a vision for the future. We have issues that we're dealing with today. And then we have a lot of midterm, which I would refer to like a 2, 3 to 5 year plan, which is really driven based on the business that we've won. In especially on the OEM side, you win a contract or you win an award, you've got hopefully no less than 18 to 24 months, up to 36 months to develop it. So I try to help my team where I can with the current issues because of my background. If I need to go to Asia, audit a supplier, if I need to help with the team with quality issues, I have that ability and experience to do just that. But at the same time, I can't, take my eye off the long-term ball, which is building an organization that can handle the true high volume, high quality, zero defect industry expectations of a true OEM. And I think the Stellantis project, I think that was one of the first big true tier one programs, heavily integrated. And the team, really did a fantastic job in learning how to, work on a global scale. So, it's a combination of short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, connecting the dots, making sure people in your organization understand how what they do today and tomorrow impacts the future. They need to know why we're making the changes, why things are adapting. COVID created a lot of change. Wages have been going up here in the States. We need to be global. Our customers expect us to be global. And, we need to be willing to make those tough decisions when it comes to manufacturing. And do we stay in the United States? Do we set up a shop in Mexico? Do we rely on Asia? There's constantly, there's challenges being thrown at us. And finding a balance is key. And it's not always easy. That goes without saying, right? Somebody asked me what keeps me up at night, and I kind of laughed because there's always something in this business, whether it's supply chain shortages, if it's a dock strike, COVID. You just got to be prepared for the unexpected, I think. You can't let your guard down, and you've got to have that ability to jump right into a crisis. If a crisis pops up, you got to be able to manage the crisis while you kind of keep the train moving in the long-term direction and not get derailed.
Yeah, I like to talk about known unknowns and unknown unknowns, right? So there's the things you don't know, like when's the next strike going to happen or when is this going to happen? But then there's the things you never see coming, I don't know, like a global pandemic, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Have you found one or more of these? Like, do you have strategy or tactical leadership more in your style?
I would say that I like working with a diverse group of employees. I like, seeing the team grow, giving employees opportunities. I feel that if I'm successful, it's because I'm helping the people under me and around me be successful. I think maybe that comes from my DNA to an extent. My dad was a teacher. My sister was a teacher. So growing up in that environment, I feel that sometimes I have to be a teacher and I have to train my employees. I know some people expect, well, you're in this level of a position because, your skills and ability, but that doesn't mean you can't stop learning. And so I enjoy training people. I enjoy seeing people flourish. I want them to feel comfortable coming to me, ask for help. I'm here to help them. They're here to help me. And again, you have to be able to like working with people of all different types and personalities. And, you got to be able to adapt to the different personalities of the team and bring out the best in them. And that's something that I enjoy doing.
I think a theme to most of your answers so far is one that resonates with me personally, and that is the team.
Yep.
People matter. That's one of my mantras is people matter. And if the people around you are successful, then like you said, a rising tide raises all boats, right? So if everybody else around you is successful, you're going to move right along with it. So
yeah, that is correct. I tell my staff, your employees can make you or break you, and the production people deserve to be treated with respect. Just because it's one of the lower level positions, their value is, without employees producing high quality product, none of us have a job. So I really emphasize that, the ownership down to the worker on the floor, they need to treat their job like they're the president and CEO of that workstation, even if they're just doing one thing every day. They are a customer from the person to their right, giving them a product. They do a job and they have a customer, the person to their left that gets the product they produce. Everything in between, they own it If they want to make suggestions on how to make that process better, we want to hear it. If they need to stop the line because there's a quality issue, they can stop the line. You got to bring that ownership all the way down to that level.
I have to go back and remind myself what podcast it was in, but one of my earlier podcasts, guy relates a story, and basically they had an acquisition, and he comes in and he's, I guess they're struggling, and he brings everybody to like an all hands meeting, and he says, he's asking for suggestions, and finally a guy in overalls in the back raises his hands and says, glad you asked us to help you with this, because you pay for our hands, but you get our heads for free. And nobody, everybody. So I like the way your attitude is. You are, if you have an improvement, let's bring it up. You're an owner as well, right?
Yep. And a lot of that stems from, my training within Panasonic. The Japanese culture was very team oriented. They wanted employees to have input, and I gravitated to that. It was a lot very similar to my dad, and he who ended up being a superintendent and managed a large school system. And, he was somebody I relied on, and his philosophy and my philosophy tied into the Japanese philosophy. And it just reinforced that, that two heads are better than one, and bringing in your people to help solve the problems. The ownership is there now. The buy-in is there. They had input. I think the probability of success is going to be far greater when the employees have input into the solution versus someone who doesn't respect their employees and just says, do it my way or the highway. They might do it begrudgingly, but they may not do it effectively and efficiently.
Correct. Yeah. Or with the quality that you're looking for.
Exactly.
Well, that concludes part one of my conversation with Ed Moss, president of VOXX Automotive. Coming up in part two, Ed talks about investing in his people and promoting continuous learning amongst his team.
I think in this business, the company can invest in an employee, but companies are only going to invest in employees if they see that employees are willing to invest in themselves. It's got to be a two-way street to an extent. So those that are willing to learn, those that are looking for opportunities as they come up, we post internal job openings when an employee leaves, and we have an open door policy. If an employee's been in a certain role for 5 years and they're bored and they want to learn something else, we want to know that. We don't want to lose good employees to other companies because we didn't provide them an opportunity within our company.
Thanks for listening to The Conversation. To find out more about Clint, go to clintonmpaget.com and pick up Clint's book, How Teams Triumph, Managing by Commitment, at Amazon. The Conversation with Clinton M. Paget is a production of Forbes Books.